Yar and ahoy there, I'm Captain Benzie and welcome to another video for Eve Echoes. Today is International Speak Like a Pirate Day, and I'm not going to do this for the entire video because, that hurts my throat and it's going to be really cringeworthy for all of you, but it did inspire me to have a look at one of my favourite factions in the game. So today, for International Talk Like a Pirate Day, or International Speak Like a Pirate Day, or my birthday as my dad calls it, ultimately we're going to be having a look at the Guristas Pirates line of ships, and I'm just going to be talking about why I love them. Don't really expect much in the way of fitting. We will have a look at all three ships and just talk about why I fly them the way I do and what kind of content I use them for, and what I hope for them for the future. But essentially this is just going to be a celebration of all things Guristas Pirates. And of course the Guristas themselves, I'm pretty sure, don't speak like they've got a West Country Cornwall accent, but hey, who knows? Maybe they do. Perhaps we should ask CCP. If you do enjoy this video, let me know, hit like on it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you want to keep me making content like this, if you want to help support this channel, you can do so by heading across to patreon.com/Captain Benzie. You can pledge to support there. Every single dollar means the world to me and really helps keep this channel going. Anyway, that's really done my throat a number. Let's jump right in to talking about the Guristas Pirates. So I'm going to jump into the ship tree to start this one off. Now, I think the first thing we should discuss is the actual name. Is it Guristas or Guristas? It's up to you. I don't think there is actually an official pronunciation. I've heard even CCP, the developers of EVE Online, say it both ways, so who knows. I like to say Guristas, but I often find myself saying Guristas, so if I kind of mix and match between the two, please forgive me. Now, the Guristas Pirates are a group of primarily Caldari folk based in the north of the galaxy. If we were to open up the star chart, for example, and then change this to view sovereignty info, come right the way out from the Great Wildlands, you'll see that their home region is actually Venal. When it loads properly, I'm having a bit of lag today, there we are. Venal, you can see, has the Guristas Pirates emblem in it, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. So that's basically their home system. They're a bunch of quite traditional pirates. They're not like the Angel Cartel that are much more of almost kind of the mob going on with them. They're not like Serpentis, which are big on their research and stuff like that. Blood Raiders have sort of their religious reasoning behind what they do. Sansha are just mindless drones and zombies, basically. Oh man, my throat is still so bad from that. I should never, ever do a Talk Like a Pirate intro ever again. The Guristas Pirates, though, are much more traditional pirates. They're basically a bunch of folks that enjoy pillaging and raiding and making themselves filthy rich. And indeed, Caraco the Rabbit, the one who is still alive of the two original founders of the Guristas Pirates, is filthy, filthy rich. There is a brilliant EVE Online book called The Burning Life, which is all about Capsuleer's effect on the world around them, whereas the Empyrean Age is about the lore of EVE Online and what's kind of going on and what draws up to the point of the game itself starting. The Burning Life follows essentially a guy who starts at the beginning. He's a member of the Sani Sabek, basically the Blood Raiders' actual, colonies. When a Capsuleer comes along and just blows up his entire colony. He's one of the few left alive. He ends up fleeing and joining the Sisters of Eve and flies around with the Sisters of Eve, visiting the various different pirate factions. So he spends a time with the Angel Cartel, a bit of time with the Guristas and things like that, just getting used to, and you learn a lot about them. There's also a couple of career agents who, one of them basically ends up fleeing from the Galente Empire for some of her crimes, and they travel through the four main empires as well. So it gives you a real kind of civilian look at life in New Eden. The career agents travelling through the four empires gives you that, whereas the main character, Drem, kind of going through the different pirate factions, gives you an interesting look at those. And he actually goes to meet the rabbit at one point, and the world that he lands on is just this lavish paradise that has just been micro-manufactured down to the tiniest detail, because the Guristas are just that rich. They are probably the richest faction in New Eden. And Caraco the Rabbit has sort of a bit of history with the Caldari. If you're wondering why the worm, the Gila, yes, it is pronounced Gila, and the Rattlesnake look like Caldari ships, namely the Merlin, the Moa, and the Scorpion, respectively. Ultimately, there's a bit of a back and forth going on. If we were to read, I think it does actually mention this in some of the descriptions down here. Let's have a look. There we are. In the time-honored tradition of pirates everywhere, Kurako Rabbit Kosakami shamelessly stole the idea of the Scorpion-class battleship and put his own spin on it. The result, the fearsome Rattlesnake, flagship of any large Guristas attack force. There are, of course, also those who claim things were the other way around, that the notorious silence surrounding the Scorpion's own origins was, in fact, an indication of it having been designed by Kosakami all along. And this is a really cool part of the EVE lore, I find, especially with the Caldari state. Caldari state is ridiculously, it's almost fascio-capitalist at this point, especially under the rule of Tibus Heth. But essentially the capitalism side of it is 100% accurate. The entire Caldari state is run by mega corporations, basically. And way back when, one of them was Otto Gurushi. And basically, it's shown in various different parts of the lore that Otto did have some dealings with the Guristas Pirates, and it's not certain whether he was getting ideas from them and handing them off to the Caldari Navy, or if he was handing off items from the Caldari Navy to the Guristas, giving them the blueprints and ship designs to work with. And it's a wonderful bit of lore that there's a lot of stuff goes on there. And Otto Gurushi does bite the dust during the Empyrean Age. He's also the one who actually develops Insorum, which is the drug used to free the Minmatar slaves from their addiction to Vitok, which is another really cool and quite important part of the lore. So he's a pretty central character, and there's a lot of this back and forth between him and the rabbit, Kurako. Now, it's, as it mentions here on the Gila, taking what he'd learned from his days in the Caldari Navy, Kurako the Rabbit Kosakami, the Guristas leader, decided that he would rub salt in the state's wounds by looting their designs and striking against his former masters in ships whose layout was obviously stolen from them. To this end, the Gila, the Moa's twin, has served him well. As less of a kind of, was this stolen? Here it pretty much explicitly states that yes, the Gila's design was stolen when Kurako Kurasami left the Caldari State Navy and founded the Guristas Pirates. Then, of course, we have the Worm, if we scroll to the bottom of that. The Guristas leader Kurako the Rabbit Kosakami has a particular love for stealing Caldari ship designs, scooping them up and turning them on their creators. With the Worm, he's taken the Merlin design that is familiar to Caldari pilots and turned it into a defensive powerhouse capable of firing blasts after blasts at terrifying speeds. That also gives the point that I mentioned earlier, I'd come back to it later. The Guristas Pirates logo is a rabbit. It is a rabbit, yeah, it's a skull with rabbit ears, basically. I love this design. I do actually have a shirt which I picked up from Redbubble, which is it's like a red square with the Guristas Pirates logo in gold, eating a Megathron that's flying into it, and it's just such a cool shirt. I really do like that one. It's a cool logo, really cool logo that obviously hints at that kind of militaristic ideal. If you look at the American military and other militaries around the world, obviously a lot of the different units and that do have emblems and logos designed with certain animals in mind, often made much more aggressive than they are. And I just love the concept of taking an aggressive, evil-looking skull, a leering skull, and giving it bunny ears. That is the Guristas all over. The word Guristas itself is actually Caldari for crazy. I think it's actually Intaki, if I remember. I'm not exactly certain which branch of Caldari it is, but it means crazy. And that means that these guys are literally called the Crazy Pirates, and they call themselves Crazy Pirates, which, come on, how do you get cooler than that? So why do I enjoy flying these ships? Well, one, I love the backstory. If that wasn't abundantly clear by now, by me just talking about it and, you know, just waxing lyrical about Kurako and the lore behind it all, I love the Guristas backstory. They're a bunch of crazy-ass pirates who just want to make themselves super rich by daring themselves to do equally ridiculous incursions and invasions and sort of stepping things up. The constant one-upmanship and just thrill-seeking. That is what they're all about. And a lot of people who join the Guristas do so because they're done with sort of that boring, enclosed and claustrophobic life that the Caldari state offers. And instead go for the just wild hedonistic freedoms of the Guristas Pirates. It's not to say that the Guristas are entirely made up of Caldari. In the Burning Life, you do meet some Guristas who are based around things like Minmatar. There are obviously Galente defectors, Amarians as well. People from all across the New Eden will go to the Guristas and join them, and just basically looking for a slightly more fun life. And I think the Guristas really embody that design of the brightest life burns fastest kind of thing. They are all about living life to the fullest and blowing themselves up spectacularly, if not intentionally. It's not like they go out of their way to get themselves killed, but it's just how they are. I also love the stats on the ships. I love how the ships look. The Worm and the Merlin are actually one of my favourite ship designs. I think it's a really cool sort of symmetric ship with enough unusualness to it that it doesn't look just like your generic fighter. The Condor to me just looks like a generic fighter plane. And as I'm saying this, as I'm filming this here in Zimbabwe, I can actually hear a government fighter plane going overhead. It's almost fate. Anyway, I really enjoy the bonuses. The fact that the Guristas Pirates ships are twinned and split between drone damage and between missile damage, I really like. Missiles have always been one of my favourite weapon systems, and drones as well are just so versatile and can be really, really useful. So the fact that the ships flip between those two is really cool, and they are also astonishingly tanky. The Worm itself, 4% shield resistance per level of Advanced Frigate Command, 20% at full training of that. That's 20% on top of its already fairly decent resistances. It's got a good large shield tank to it for a frigate of this size. If I go into the actual learn more and attributes and fittings there, 1,562 is not to be sniffed at for a frigate. This is tanky. It's tanky. The damage may not be as high as it used to be, and certainly back in the day, back in the open beta, I've got videos on this channel of the Worm being able to launch drones at 145 kilometers. It made doing Tech 10 content with the Worm really, really easy, and made PvP with them just ridiculous, because what do? Well, obviously you shoot the drones, but that's the other thing I really like about the Guristas. It's all really well and cool having a big ship like, say, the Dominics or the Geddon and things like that have these flights of drones around them, carriers launching various different wings of fighters and stuff like that. The Guristas take that and just condense it down. You only ever get 2 drones, but those 2 drones have massive bonuses that push them right up to being the equivalent of 5 times what they actually are, which is just fantastic. Really heavy on the damage. It means you don't have to micromanage your drones as much. It has the downside that you can't sort of be hitting 5 targets at once, but when do you ever really want to do that? You want to hit 1 target and hit it hard. And the Worm, I don't know. I've covered the Worm a lot on this channel. I've talked about it in the past with different fits that I've run. The good old Frosty Worm, which uses large missiles rather than uses medium missiles rather than medium rapids. That definitely has its place in PvP, and I think definitely even the smaller version, like I have fitted using things like just the rapid missiles. I've gone for rapid missiles and extenders here. That's definitely a viable way to play this, and with the right nano core you can get some pretty good stats. You can also just stick with small missiles and instead pump into medium extenders and things like that to really lean into the tankiness of this ship. And I don't know. I love the Worm. This is probably the faction frigate that I enjoy the most in terms of combat potential. There's a lot of versatility here, and I do think it both, on one hand, it is massively underestimated and people don't really fly it all that much, which does make me sad, but at the same time I kind of understand why. It is quite underwhelming compared to some of the others, partially due to how missiles work, partially due to how little content there really is for something like the Worm, and how the meta in EVE Echoes is really set up for frigates to require, massive speeds and small signature radiuses. 2 things the Worm does not have. It's the largest signature radius of any of the faction frigates, and I think it's the slowest speed of all of them as well. That's why you see the Succubus being far more popular, because you can basically just super speed tank at short range with really powerful blasters. And it's just, really powerful beam lasers and pulse lasers. Get there in the end, Benzie. Ultimately, the Worm just doesn't have that niche. I think the Worm is an okay ship. I think it's probably actually a pretty good ship. Its stats are actually kind of terrifying in certain ways. But when it comes down to it, the meta just doesn't support it. And that kind of makes me sad. There's no PvE content for it. In EVE Online, I fly the Worm a hell of a lot because I do Abyssal Dead Spaces a lot, and the Worm is fantastic at Tier 1, Tier 2 Abyssal Dead Spaces, specifically electric ones, and I spend a lot of time in those. That's how I make most of my ISK in EVE Online, and I'm flying this ship, and I love it. I absolutely love it. You'll never see someone putting medium rapids onto a Worm in EVE Online, but hey, you do see oversizing of the other modules. But that's why I love the Worm, and I can sit here and talk about the Worm all day, but let's go into my inventory, scroll down, see if I can't find my healer. We're going to pull that one out and talk about that too. Where are you? Scroll past all of the frigates that I never get to fly because there's no content for them, and all the destroyers. There's the healer, another ship that sadly I don't get to fly nearly as much as I would like. Now, arguably, there is a bit more content in the way of things for the healer in regards to PvE. I do sometimes take this out to a certain system where I go grinding Tier 8 anomalies, and this will quite happily take out Tech 8 specials. So if a Tech 8 Overseer spawns, or Tech 8 Inquisitor or Scout, the healer will comfortably do that. It'll also do NDS 6, and I think 7's okay. I don't know if it can do an NDS 8. I've not tried. I've been a little bit too scared to give that one a run. But ultimately, I really like the healer. This is a fun ship to fly, I think. Let's have a look at this. So again, when it comes down to it, this is a mower-based ship, and I love the look of the mower. It reminds me a lot of Serenity from Firefly. One of my favourite sci-fi series is Rest in Peace, Firefly. Sadly, we never quite got the ending you deserved. Again, it's got minimal slots there to fill out. You've got your 2 drone tubes, 4 high slots, 3 mids, and 5 lows. It is still a Guristas ship, so it's splitting its damage between drone damage and missiles. You get that wonderful bonus to shield resistance. The mixed bonuses to kinetic and thermal damage, again, you'll notice you don't really get missile bonuses. You get the kinetic and thermal damage. It's not overall DPS or damage, it's only those two, which does work really well in the favour of the Guristas Pirates, because you'll find that in most situations, kinetic or thermal are actually the lowest resistances on the ships that you're up against, and so this does actually punch through really quite nicely, and it makes the DPS sometimes a little bit misleading. You see, I've only got a blue nanocore on this one, which does make me sad, and there are all kinds of ways you can run this. This isn't really the fit I would normally use. Certainly, I'm not going out doing PvE with a guidance disruptor or tracking disruptors. I usually swap that out for webs and target painters, and I just go and do, some PvE in this. I have occasionally gone hunting with it in the past. This was just me messing around with the concept of possibly taking this into a dormant realm. It didn't really ever go ahead, but hey, there we go. Again, super tanky ship, nice and versatile. You've got missiles in the high slots, drones in the mids that you can swap in and out for various different things. Very, very tanky ship. And again, some people, when I did my Rattlesnake video, commented on why am I using ballistic control systems? They tend to get more damage from the drones. Well, not according to this. As you can see here, I have actually mainly rigged for drones on this particular one, drones and shield, but the drones DPS is still a little bit lower at 413, whereas the missiles come up a little bit higher using that ballistic control unit. I don't know, I like to lean into the missiles. I like missiles, and I'm not here to min-max. I've never been around to min-max. If you're watching one of my fit videos and you're going, oh my god, I could do this better myself, good, that's the point. I'm trying to show you a starting fit and something that I'm having fun with. If you can modify it to be more personal and more preferable to you, that's fantastic, good, go for it. Ultimately, for me, the biggest problem with the healer is, again, it's slightly lower, it's lower DPS than everyone else. That's partly due to the fact that we do not have Meta Level 11 blue quality drones, nor do we have blue quality drone damage amplifiers, whereas you can get like your C-type ballistic control units and your C-type missiles. I think once we get those drones, you'll get a lot more power out of these ships, because it is quite a big difference. If you look at how much DPS you go from with, say, a Federation Navy railgun to a C-type railgun, there's a big DPS jump there. Same with going from like your Republic fleet missile launchers up to your Pith C-type, Pithy C-type missile launchers. It's a big jump, and we don't get that for the drones, which kind of makes me sad. And I've argued for and against this in the past, but it's something I would love to see happen. I'd love to see drones get their Dead Space equivalent version added. I'd love that to be done as blueprints, though, so it gives industry something to work with. Yeah, I don't know exactly how you would add those to the game, but I would still love to see it. Maybe one day we'll get a new difficult Dormant Realm style thing, or they'll open up Nihilist Dead Space as if it were wormholes, like in that video where I talked about exploration. Maybe we'll get some cool stuff like, perhaps, C-type drone blueprints there. That would be cool, but then again, I suppose NPCs also don't use drones in Echoes, nor do they shoot drones. So I suppose the lower DPS is the price you pay for that versatility, and the fact that, yeah, I don't know. The argument counter to that is that drones require you to have more skills. If you just want medium missiles, you go medium missile operation, medium missile upgrade. If you want drones, you need medium drone upgrade and medium drone operation, and you need the drone skill as well. So you've got 3 skills that you need to train. Anyway, that's the Gila. I love this ship to pieces. Now, I have recently done a video on the Rattlesnake as well, so let's scroll right to the bottom and pull this one out. I'm not going to spend too long talking about this because I have just done a video on it, but I do want to address some of the things that people said to me in response to that. Ultimately, again, fitting is a very personal thing. Some people have a fit that they will absolutely die on a hill with. Some people do, want different ways to do different things. The first controversial point was the fact that I use large missiles rather than large rapids. For me, I prefer the large missiles because, as I said, I've tested this with large rapids and using DPS rigs, and large missiles using application rigs, and the large missiles cleared faster. They did. Remember, I'm in angel space as well. So there are certain sacrifices and decisions I have to make there. I am brawling. Brawling with this, people then said, well, if you're brawling, why don't you use 2 webs and 1 target painter rather than 2 painters and 1 web? Ultimately, it's because I don't often find myself in web range. You get those rats that sprint up to you, like the interceptors and the thrasher interdictors and stuff like that. Those always end up about 4 kilometers. Those you can web. But I've got no propulsion on this Rattlesnake, so even though I've warped to 0, a lot of ships sit at sort of 17, 21 kilometers away. I can use a target painter on those. I can't use the web. So the web actually doesn't get all that much use here. Some people have then argued, well, why don't you swap the web for a Nosferatu? And that's a solid point. It's something I hadn't really thought of, because 6 minutes 38 is more than enough tank for me. Other people then said, well, actually, there's a lot of tank going on here. Do you need all those hardeners in Angel Space? Could you swap one of those for something like a ballistic control unit to get a bit more of the missile damage up there, rather than having another drone damage amplifier go for a bit more missile damage? There were so many different options, and people absolutely astonished that I was running the Rattlesnake as a brawler, not as a sniper. How can you run it as a sniper? I had some people genuinely on Reddit sit there and say, I think it works better as a sniper, and that's valid. That's valid. I think people who enjoy sniping, yeah, the Rattlesnake does fantastic with that. If you want to put in, like, Caldari Navy Wardens or something into that, that's a really cool idea, and you can get some really good DPS out of it, and complete safety. You can sacrifice some of that tank because you're sitting at like 80, 90 kilometers away, and you're not getting hit, so you can do that. But for me, I just don't find that a fun playstyle. I don't want to sit at range and snipe. I don't care if it's the better way to fit it. It's not the fun way for me, and that's what my videos are about. Here's how I'm having fun with this ship. If you want to fly this ship, here's how you can too. Like, no one was seriously thinking that Benzi's actually recommending the Praxis 2, right? No, of course I wasn't. It's ridiculously expensive, it's hard to get. I was merely saying that, look, if you're interested in flying the Praxis 2, if it's going to be fun for you to fly a ship that you like the look of, you can actually do pretty well with it. And same with the Rattlesnake and brawling. I like this as a brawler. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a visually quite impressive ship. It does... I still don't like flying battleships, even the Rattlesnake. I don't enjoy flying them because they're just too slow and cumbersome for me. I want to be in my Gila. I want to be in my Worm. But until the content comes out for those, this is basically what I'm flying for the time. And I am somewhat enjoying it. It's, it could be worse. It could be worse. I could be stuck in something like an Apocalypse Striker, a ship that I have flown, I wanted to do videos for, but I just cannot bring myself to do. But anyway, folks, that's the Guristas Pirates. That's who they are. That's the ships that they have and why I enjoy flying this. Yes, one day we might get the Cayman and the Komodo. Cayman, for those who don't know, is basically the Dreadnought. It's the Phoenix Dreadnought, but with carrier capabilities as well. So it's a Dreadnought that can actually do PvE, you know? It's a scary ship. It's a really scary ship, and it's something that if they do end up adding the faction capitals, which I do eventually one day hope they do, and I would prefer to get the faction capitals rather than super capitals, because I think the game could use faction capitals. There'd be ore sinks that aren't aren't much better than the standard variants, rather than super carriers, which are just a massive difference from standard carriers. There's so much they do, and it would change the face of the game adding those. I would probably end up flying a Cayman. I'm gonna, once I finish properly skilling into these ships, I'm still skilling into some of the battleship skills at the moment, pulling these up. Once I hit 554 in all the battleship skills that I want, oh, I've got some free SP, let's actually add those on there. I'm probably going to lose those advanced industrial ship defense upgrades. I do want to go back to, I had to train out of my industrial skills flying like the Reef 2 and the Noctis recently because I needed to push the battleship skills up as fast as I could. But once the battleship skills are up, I may actually even start training into carriers. Yeah, genuinely, I might start training into carriers on Benzie, on the concept of one day flying a Cayman if and when it's added. I don't know if I'll enjoy it. I've never flown one before. The concept is intriguing to me, and I think it could be a lot of fun. I think it's interesting as well, finally, just to wrap this video off, that when I first started making content for this, I think it was fairly obvious that to most people, the Dromiel was my favourite ship. I was a big fan of cannons. I loved the Dromiel for its spiky, super speedy boy nature. But as time's gone on, I've just come to love the Guristas more and more and more. I love their attitude to life. I love the way that their ships look and the way they fly. It's something I want to be flying more of these. So who knows? As the content gets added to the game, you might see me flying more and more Guristas Pirates in future content. Anyway, folks, that's why I love the Guristas Pirates. Let me know how you feel about them, which faction you enjoy the most, whether that's one of the four empires, one of the pirate factions, or one of the mercenary factions. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. Otherwise, thanks for listening to this one right the way through to the end. Happy sailing, happy International Speak Like a Pirate Day, and see you all next time.